Hi, welcome to the Dr. Maria Show. It is July 7th, 2025, and the country is reeling over what happened in Kerr County, Texas. The flash flooding of the Guadalupe River has left such devastation, and we collectively mourn for all the lives that were lost. It's very interesting. I am not a meteorologist, but to look at what happened. And apparently, from last Wednesday, the meteorologists were looking at these storm cells and they kept redeveloping. So that meant they stayed overhead and kept pouring down rain. That area is very shallow, rocky, so there was very little absorption of the intense rainwater. But they put out some X posts starting last Wednesday that there may be, some flooding, watch out. Thursday, a little bit more. And then Friday at about 12:26 a.m., the National Weather Service said likely flooding going to occur overnight. And at 1 a.m., I believe the first alert went out. Now, most people are sleeping. I don't know how that alert goes. Is it by text? Is it still like, I don't know if other states are like this. I'm in New Hampshire, and sometimes I stay up late a lot. And if I'm watching television, my screen all of a sudden goes blank, and then there's a big buzz, and this is just a test for the emergency warning system. Is it like that? Do you have to be on television? I don't know the answers to that. Maybe my guest knows some of those answers, but this was in the middle of the night. And of course, we're hearing a lot about the Christian camp. As young as 7-year-old girls were in one of the buildings sleeping. That whole building got washed away, and it happened so quickly. The water rose like 26 feet in record time in 45 minutes. We actually have a time-lapse little clip that shows how quickly the waters rose. Here's people on, look at, it just was, of course, this happened 45 minutes, which is extremely quick. And in some areas, it was the middle of the night. So these kids didn't have any warning, washed away. Some heroic rescues took place. One gentleman that works with the Coast Guard saved personally 165 people himself. Others didn't have the good fortune. Over 90 people lost their lives. And while the rescue missions continue, we are looking at recovering bodies as well to bring home to the families. Ironically, in 1987, the Guadalupe River flooded and another Christian camp got flooded, flash flood, where 10 teenagers lost their life. I was trying to get Lieutenant Dan Patrick on the show to comment because I was very impressed with what he said today. We always need to look at what we can do better, and we need some kind of an alarm system, whether it's like it is in Tornado Alley, where you have a audible alarm that would wake people up or something. And if the cities can't afford it, we as the state will pay for it. President Trump as well. Here, listen to Caroline Levitt talk about this flash flood in Kerr County, Texas.
I want to start by addressing the devastation from the tragic flash floods in Texas. Moments ago, the Department of Homeland Security provided an update that 91 innocent souls have now perished. Everyone here at the White House, including the President of the United States, is praying for the victims' families and friends during this unimaginable time. President Trump swiftly signed a major disaster declaration for Kerr County, Texas, to ensure our heroic first responders have every resource they need in the relief and recovery efforts. Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem traveled to Texas over the weekend, and the entire Trump administration is working hand in glove with state and local officials to provide every assistance available. The situation on the ground remains dangerous, and there could be additional public safety threats with potential incoming heavy rain. So we encourage everyone in the area to remain vigilant, listen to all warnings, and respond accordingly.
Joining me to comment is Walter West, who was a captain, a rescue captain, and trained on the Guadalupe River. Welcome to the show, Walter.
Thank you. How are you guys doing up there?
Well, we're mourning, even though we're not in Texas. Those are our brethren, and we're collectively mourning. This happened so quickly, Walter. What are some of the difficulties in performing a rescue operation?
Well, the first one you got to think of, it's at night, and then of course in the morning. The biggest part that of an issue you're going to have is going to be the fast moving water, the fact that people are trying to get out while you're going in. Whenever I first got into swiftwater rescue, this area that we're in, the Kerrville and all that. So Kerrville is in Kerr County, and it starts actually north of Kerrville, north of Kerr County. And whenever you say camp, there was actually 18 camps that were affected. This is a very heavily traveled, especially for the 4th of July area. So there's one, the camps, two, the people that have their homes on the river, and of course all the RV parks that are in there as well. So if you look back on the fact that you have all those people that collectively gather there, um, whenever you talked about the warning system, back in the 80s, we used to have the sirens. Matter of fact, 80s and 90s, I became a volunteer firefighter, then I became paid. My father was one of the people who helped establish Swiftwater Rescue with I knew a lot of the chiefs back in the 80s, based upon what happened in 1987, whenever that Christian camp, they put all their kids in a bus, loaded them up, tried to go through a low water crossing, and the next thing you know, they got swept away. And those are the historic videos you see of the soldiers coming out of Fort Sam Houston to rescue those kids out of the trees at that time. And Texas since the 80s has improved and increased the fire service, law enforcement. I mean, everybody is ready for this. The cops even have swiftwater rescue bags. If they're properly certified, they'll have everything they need to do to make and effect rescues. And I don't even know if you guys saw the fact that yesterday, um, as things were happening, another wall of water came down. So all the rescuers had to get off of the river, climb to high ground, and wait for that water to pass through. So this is something that we just haven't seen this kind of water drop that fast in a while. And remember, it when it collects in one area, if you can imagine, um, if you can imagine everyone thinks of rain as just coming down on a flat area, but whenever you have hills and slopes, they accelerate the rain, they accelerate the speed of the water. Those things happen. That's why whole houses were moved, trailers, houses, I mean, actual physical houses were moved down the river. You had the boys' camp where I believe everybody survived, but the boys were telling the stories of as the cabin was floating down the river, their 17 and 18, 16, 17, 18-year-old camp counselors were pushing those kids up. They were going underwater to push those kids up into the rafters. And I mean, so everyone's focused on Camp Mystic. That is a very, very sad situation with that many, but that wasn't the only camp that was down there. You had Camp La Junta, which was to the north. You had Camp Mystic, and you had several other camps that are there, as well as the fact you had all those RV parks where people could roll in for the weekend, enjoy the river, enjoy the music. Green Hall is further down the area, but it's a very rich Texas area, so there's a lot of Texas history there. And these Christian camps are I mean, they're there because at the time the real estate was good, and they've been there. A lot of them have been there for over 50 to 60 years. So this is a great place in Texas to be, and trust me, everybody wants to go there.
Yeah, and it's tragic, and you're right. Other camps were affected, and I'm sure we're going to hear all kinds of stories of heroism. When you were talking about the camp counselors going underwater to lift the children out up, I had goosebumps all down my arms, because it's just remarkable to have that sense of what to do during such a traumatic and unexpected thing that happened. And I'll look forward to hearing from them. But all these children, their survivors, are going to have survivors' guilt, trauma, nightmares, all kinds of things. Here's just two statements from families. This first one, this little girl, Renee, she's just, all of them, right? They're gifts from God. But the family in this statement, we are thankful she was with her friends and having the time of her life. As evidenced by this picture from yesterday, she will forever be living her best life at Camp Mystic. Like, I don't even know if I could comment if it happened to me. And to have the spirit of trying to kind of uplift others through this statement is just remarkable. And the other little girl, Sarah Marsh, obviously the family writes, our family is completely devastated by the loss of Sarah and her dear friends at Camp Mystic. This is a tragedy that no parent can prepare for, and it will never be right this side of heaven. So, Walter, you seem to know that area well. How does the alert come across? There was alerts I saw since July 2nd. There was one. Now, it came out on X post from the Texas Emergency Management on July 2nd. Then there was more on July 3rd. And then the ones that happened from the National Weather Department, if you will, that was more towards the time when people are sleeping. Do they get an alert, like an Amber Alert on a phone? How does it work?
So they get the Amber Alerts like on a phone. The only problem is they don't always get signal up there. It's all stone rock formations. There's a lot of trees. And then these guys are down in the valleys. So there are some kids that the phone went off. So in the camps, they said their phones went off. You had some of the camp counselors, the senior kids like Mystic, they were up higher. They were up on higher ground, and then some of those houses the cabins got washed away, so they didn't know about that. But they had the one set of cabins, they were washed out, so those kids came into their cabin, and so you had the older kids, the younger ones, which actually
we're starting to struggle a little bit with your audio, Walter. So while you fix that, let's put up what Secretary Christine Nome put out today. United States Coast Guard rescue swimmer and petty officer Scott Ruskin, this is the gentleman I was talking about earlier, directly saved an astonishing 165 victims in the devastating flooding in Central Texas. This was the first rescue mission of his career, and he was the only triage coordinator at the scene. Scott Ruskin is an American hero. His selfless courage embodies the spirit and mission of the United States Coast Guard. I saw him interviewed, and he wants to say he's not a hero. He was doing his job. He was doing the right thing, but there are many, many people who risked their lives trying to save others. But it's a time that we do often see the best in people. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick talked about today of potentially doing a different type of alert system, because storms can happen in the middle of the night. Flash flooding can happen at 4 a.m. How can we warn people? And he was talking about doing a system like a loud kind of siren to warn people. And maybe it'll have different levels. Maybe it's a particular sound to say you have an hour to flee or whatever. I don't know. I'm sure the professionals will work out that. And I liked that he's going to do something. So this we can try to alleviate something like this happening to such obviously we can't change nature, but to such devastating results of a flash flooding. And he said if the cities can't afford it, the state will do it. And we certainly know President Trump has offered federal dollars. Walter, what do you think about a different type of a system, an alarm type system that will wake up everybody? Because I totally related to you saying their internet probably isn't that good there. I can tell you in northern New Hampshire, it is terrible to have internets. And I often worried about people in emergencies.
So yes, the biggest thing to remember is back in the growing up back in the 80s, 70s, and 80s for me, we always had the air raid alarm systems. It used to be the air raid sirens from the 50s, and those are what your volunteer fire departments used to use to alert the area. They had them in Tornado Alley, but a lot of the times those were used to call the volunteers to the station because they, if they would call people by phone if they had a party line. So I mean, we're talking it goes back over 50 years, but that's the most essential thing to do is to make sure you have those air raid sirens and you happen to where they're spaced out. And that it's unfortunate that you have to go through that, but with all of our technologies, obviously in these areas they didn't have the internet, they didn't have 4G, 3G, 5G, or any of that, or LTE. So those were the failures, and we noticed if the cell towers went down.
Our conversation, I feel, is a productive one. And I felt when Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick was talking about it, it was proactive and healthy. There is a lot of rhetoric from, we're so divided politically, and it seems like we can never celebrate each other or never come together to care for people. You would think with this devastation happening in Texas, we'd be one voice in our empathy, in our sympathy. Instead, there's rhetoric from some media outlets claiming, and some politicians, I may say, claiming that this devastation was due to cuts made to the National Weather Agency. My understanding is that they were fully staffed, even maybe overstaffed. What do you know about this?
Well, so funny you said that. If you go back and you look at, I'm going to give you a couple of names and a couple sites. Travis Herzog is a meteorologist out of Houston, and he goes over the National Weather Center's alerts. That was not the case. They got the alerts out in time. You cannot predict a 26-foot wall of water. So when they were getting alerts on July 2nd, July the 3rd, hey, look out for water. People that live in the area, they'll tell you, hey, look out for water. That means something big is going to happen. Whenever you come to the area and you say, look out for water, they're not going to take that part. I'm not going to say they're not going to take it serious, but they're going to be complacent because our society, unfortunately, is not used to doing that. If you'll notice, most of our heroes in those camps were teenagers. Those are the very kids that we often complain about because they're always on their cell phones and things like that. These kids acted. And the problem is we have those folks that are on the other side of the aisle that are complaining about the cuts to the National Weather Service. It's not the National Weather Service's fault whatsoever. It's not the local it's a series of failures, but at the key time is nobody can say, hey, these certain sets of canyons are going to have water sitting on them for a specific amount of time. And then that's going to create the walls of water that keep gushing and gushing. Yesterday, they were having to evacuate people because of that. So if you look at Tropical Storm Allison in Houston, Texas, it's the same type of thing. We had Hurricane Harvey went into Texas, went out of Texas, came back again into Texas in a different area. I personally was affected by Hurricane Harvey on the second time into Texas. And the devastation was unreal. That was a hurricane. But at the same time, these weather systems that we have, those were the remnants of two hurricanes, one off the Pacific that came through Mexico, and then one out of the Gulf of Mexico that came up. They were falling apart. And then on top of that, everyone's talking about the cloud seeding thing. And if, I mean, water in an area, it's going to happen. It just happened to be right over a funnel, which is the Texas Hill Country. And even the county judge made the statement correctly. That is the worst area for flash floods in all of the United States of America.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. You would think that maybe, since we know it's a potential to happen, that maybe no sleeping, no structures where people can sleep overnight can be within so many feet of the riverbanks. Maybe people can enjoy the riverbanks during the day, but I don't know. Like I crack up. I go to Italy frequently, and we all know what happened with Mount Vesuvius and Pompeii and Herculaneum. All of them perished. They were covered with ash. Well, it's still an active volcano, and it's built up again right at the base. And there's places like that in the United States and Hawaii. Like, you would think there's a potential for devastation, for death. Maybe you shouldn't get so close to these prone natural disaster areas. Is that too practical?
Well, no, I agree with you. The problem is these are facilities that were built 50 to 100 years ago.
Mm,
So it's the
yeah.
nostalgia of the camp and where they're at. And so that's probably where the state house and all the regulators are going to look at here in the coming future to say, hey, maybe this is something we need to really think about. Our problem, FEMA was buying up all the land along the bayous and rivers in Texas because of all of the past payouts that they did. And
Mm,
at some time, you need to consider, hey, are we gonna stop building in flood prone areas? That's a good idea. But these specific areas that were affected, these are cabins that were pre-existing structures well before the 70s.
I understand. Yeah. Um, can you tell me about this seeding? I have heard that there was seeding in the area. I didn't even know if this is true. I mean, I am totally naive about this. Can we seed clouds?
So cloud seeding is the process where they take certain droplets of chemicals, they drop them into the air to energize the atmosphere, and so that's what creates the rain. And I believe it's silver iodine or silver iodide, if I'm not mistaken. But that has been used a lot. They've actually used to use it back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. We have several companies around the nation. Rainmaker is one of them that everyone's talking about, and it's actually a system that is there's a whole funding mechanism between the United States Department of Agriculture, the uh, NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and then, of course, these private companies. And you can go on the websites and see when the planes, when they fly out, you can see the pattern that they have whenever they drop the droplets up in the atmosphere, at what height and how long and where. And that helps to create it. Mexico, we're on the border of Mexico. So Mexico has been using it a lot because they were in severe drought situations over the past several years. And of course, Texas does use it. We're using it in Texas. A lot of states are using it. Some states have outlawed it. I know Florida and Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken, have made it criminal to do any type of cloud seeding. And they usually do it because of agricultural needs, drought, to reestablish anything from the droughts from the aquifers that are running dry, so to replenish things. So it's in a sense, we are kind of playing God with the weather.
Yeah, you really taught me something, Walter. I've been getting a little bit of, people are talking about, could we have been doing cloud seeding? And I'm like, is it real? Do we really do that? So thank you for that explanation. And you wonder whether we should be playing with nature and whatever chemicals they are using, is it going to hurt us 10, 20 years down the road with weird cancers? Like, we have such distrust now, rightfully so, of our government agencies for lying to us, including respected agencies, once respected agencies like the CDC and the FDA. Now, of course, we know we can't trust the FBI, we can't trust the court system. And I don't know a lot about it, so I do appreciate that. But do you know, was there anything like that happening in the area?
Um, Yes, there was. And actually, you can go on, there's government websites, not a conspiracy theory. It's not a conspiracy. It is a fact. And you can go on the government websites And because these are government grants, it will take you through the plane's tail number, what time it took off, what time it returned, the pattern it flew, what it dropped, and what times it dropped them. So you can see those. I think a combination of that, and then the fact of the two the diminished hurricanes, tropical storms, whatever. I think those combine to create this perfect storm right here. So, and bottom line is that people don't look to the clouds anymore. We don't advertise weather like we used to. Uh, I mean, when we got involved with all this technology here in the past 20 years, people have gone away from common sense, and
Mm.
so this is the problem we have with what we're seeing. I mean, I remember specifically back in 1982 or 83 when Hurricane Alicia came up into Houston. I physically tracked it all the way in with my little weather radio cube that I had. My dad was a firefighter. The coolest thing for me was I got to jump on his truck later on the day whenever the eye passed over, and we drove through downtown. And the fire trucks didn't carry chainsaws, so Dad had several chainsaws that several other firefighters brought their own chainsaws in, and they were cutting trees out of the road so people could get around. And I physically was up at 2 o'clock in the morning as Hurricane Alicia made her way into the Houston Ship Channel and the damage that was done there. And I've been, I guess you'd call me a storm tracker. I've been doing that all my life, even in the military. And, I'm able to look up and look at the different clouds and see what's happening out there where I'm at in West Texas. People are focusing on Kerrville. West Texas, the town that I'm in, Sanderson, 60 years ago last month, the town got wiped away back in 1965. We had 26 people die, and there was probably only 600 people that lived in that town. And there's a lot of the damage from there, from that. And they learned that because of how the water and the rains fall in the desert coming through the mountains, it picks up. And so the Army Corps of Engineers they've gone into West Texas and they've done certain things in certain areas to slow the water down. But that's the problem also with the cloud seeding is time and place is going to be important. And bottom line is we're overusing water. People are talking about climate change. I can't jump behind that whenever I know for a fact that the government is paying private companies to drop certain chemicals in the air, certain elements in the air to create thunderstorms.
Yikes. Yikes, yikes, yikes. This can be a whole other show. Well, I want to just concentrate on what happened in Texas. And we have some still pictures here that show the devastation. Literally, cars that were swept down the river were bent around trees. This was severe devastation. Houses gone, human life gone. We even have pictures, God, of the cabins that the little girls were in, and you could see how high the watermarks are in the bedding, all covered now with mud after the water rescinded. Just a total devastation of a flash flood. We mourn with Texas. We hope to see better alarm systems in the future. And Walter, we thank you for your expertise.
Thank you very much. God bless Texas and God bless America.
Amen to that. Well, coming up, we need to talk about what was in that big, beautiful bill. But after break, we're going to hear a little bit more about what Elon is thinking.
The last time President Trump was in office, gold soared 50% and silver went up a huge 53%. Americans who invested in silver and gold during Donald Trump's first presidency are very happy that they did it. And right now, gold continues to soar to the highest numbers in history. These gains are just an appetizer for what's to come. Some market analysts are saying that gold is predicted to rise another 30% in the next year alone. So now's the time to invest in gold and silver, and that's why I partnered with Fisher Liberty Gold. Fisher Liberty Gold is a conservative-owned and operated precious metals investment company. They even helped my good friend President Trump get elected through their contributions to Turning Point USA and other conservative groups. I have dedicated my life to ensuring that people get the best sleep ever. And in addition to owning a MyPillow, I can now sleep well at night knowing that you can all protect your savings with precious metals with Fisher Liberty Gold. With Fisher Liberty Gold, you can sleep well knowing that your retirement is secure. And if you call now, you're going to receive your very own presidential gold guide and qualify for up to $20,000 in free silver. But wait, there's more. Call now or text metals to 26786 to receive your presidential gold guide from Fisher Liberty. And for a limited time, I will send you a free MyPillow for qualified accounts. This presidential gold guide from Fisher Liberty will tell you exactly why you need to own gold even while Donald Trump is president. And just by calling in, you get a free MyPillow for a limited time for qualified accounts and up to $20,000 in free silver. So don't wait. Call 1-888-4GOLD-19 or text metals to 26786 today. That's 1-888-4GOLD-19 or text metals to 26786 today to receive your free MyPillow and up to $20,000 in free silver. With everybody talking about making America healthy again, I thought today'd be a great day to talk to all my fellow patriots about the importance of making your homes healthy again. Well, we have proudly partnered with airwaterhealing.com and their revolutionary whole home air purification system. The V3 from Air Water Healing does 3,000 square feet of purification. It eliminates dust, mold, viruses, and odors. But here's the part I love. They require no filters to ever be changed and virtually no maintenance. Whether you suffer from asthma, allergies, seasonal bronchitis, or just want to protect your family from the flu or even greater threats, don't wait to get your V3 from airwaterhealing.com today. Use code Lindell for 20% off in savings and free shipping. That's promo code Lindell at airwaterhealing.com.
Welcome back. What is going on between Elon Musk and President Donald Trump? Once they had a budding bromance, they were seen everywhere together on the road during the campaign. Then he becomes head of Doge, meaning Elon Musk, and he is being interviewed by everybody. He and his son X are in the Oval Office. All of a sudden, as his time as a temporary employee of the government was coming to an end, you could feel the tension. Something was happening. And all of a sudden, you would get President Trump saying, yeah, his time is almost here. Yeah, we're ready to move on. Like, what's happening? Then all of a sudden, it was a very public back and forth. My take on it, Elon Musk was frustrated. He did a lot for this country. And I'm not talking about just spending millions upon millions in President Trump's campaign for re-election, but just doing what he did in Doge, putting together a team, really trying to eliminate waste and fraud. For who? For you and me. And while doing that, he was fiercely attacked. And his employees at Tesla were attacked in a violent way. It is said that he lost approximately $150 million in Tesla stock. And yet Congress didn't do anything to codify those changes in those avenues where he saw blatant fraud. So I can understand if he was demoralized a little bit. I don't understand two grown men feuding in public. Interestingly enough, I had to go to New York City for a media hit. So I flew in, my taxi driver taking me to the hotel starts talking politics. And I have to say, New York taxi drivers absolutely are conservative, because when I used to have a radio show for 4 years in New York City, every taxi driver would say how much they love two people. First, above all, loving Rudy Giuliani, and then in second place, President Donald Trump. So this taxi driver started the same thing and talked about the feud between Elon and President Trump. And I didn't want to comment too much. I simply said, I find it unfortunate. I think what Elon did was really great, right? We ask everybody to step up and do what's right. And I believe in my heart of hearts, Elon believed he was doing right. I have no evidence to say he did anything wrong. That's for sure. And the driver said, I think it's an act. What do you mean it's an act? Well, he was hurt financially really bad, Elon Musk, and his employees were being threatened at Tesla. So because there is such a thing as Trump derangement syndrome, perhaps this is a fake feud to get people on Elon's side again. I have to say, I thought about that repeatedly that evening, thinking, could that be? What great psychology if that was so. A fake feud. Now, those people who just really unreasonably don't like President Trump, even great policies, they're going to hate President Trump, that maybe that would work, that they would now start supporting Elon again. Well, I was surprised. I was asked recently on Newsmax, Elon Musk is thinking about doing a third party. Do you think he'll do it? I was a little non-committal because I hadn't heard Elon mention that, or at least I don't recall. I myself, as an American citizen, have often said, I wish we could have a strong third party, because even though the Republican Party is far superior than the Democrat Party as far as policies, there's still the sellout component. And I have to say, we saw it with these Doge cuts. They still, to this day, there's been no movement in Congress on codifying them. Somebody told me who works on the Capitol that senators are working about 2 days a week now. So if it's truly that bad, both parties are too big for their britches, maybe we should have a third party. I don't know. But Elon Musk did a poll on his X platform, and here it is. And it shows overwhelming. Now, look at the number. 163 million people looked at this. I'm not sure about the N. That means the total number of people who voted on this. I'm sure there's a way to find. Oh, there it is. 5.6 million people voted. That's a big N. That's big, but it's not representative per se of the entire country. I think we would probably need 10 to 20% maybe to really see how they felt. But out of this 5.6 million people, certainly 80% thought the right thing would be to have a third party. There's such distrust in our government, such distrust in our judicial system, such distrust in our healthcare, the CDC. People are spinning. We just barely survived the Biden administration. Things were all so optimistic about President Trump. And I have to say, there's good reason, obviously, to be optimistic about President Trump. But he's not a CEO like you would find in a company, or as I was of a hospital, where the buck really stops with me. I could, if I wanted to, approve every decision. Did I? No. I delegated that. If you're a department head, you're responsible for hiring, firing, whatever, and I don't get in your business, blah, blah, blah. But we have separation of powers for a reason. So Trump could only do so much. He has done an enormous amount of executive orders. I personally, again, do not like that. He had to do them. I'm very grateful he did what he did, but I don't think any president should be doing a bucket load of executive orders. I believe we should depend on our Congress and our Senate. The problem is they're not doing their job. Their approval records are at an all-time low. So moving forward, what do? Elon Musk posted that he filed with the FEC. A lot of people are questioning whether that is correct. And I don't know if it is or if it isn't. Let's see, make sure I have the right thing here about the filing. Yeah, the FEC on Sunday morning. So some people are questioning whether that is a legitimate filing. Time will tell. What do you think? On to the big, beautiful bill. I have to admit, I'm a little confused about certain things. But first, let's get to myth versus reality about this beautiful bill. Now, it's gone through a lot of changes, first in the House, then the Senate made more changes, and then it came back to the House. So what are the changes? What really is true? Well, let's take a look at what the White House is putting out here. So the one big beautiful bill is just a tax break for billionaires. I find that so laughable. That is a talking point of several Democrats, but it's really for the working class. The one big beautiful bill delivers the largest middle and working class cut in U.S. history. That is factual. The president's legislation will put more than $10,000 a year back in the pockets of typical hard-working families. This is the most pro-growth, pro-worker, pro-family legislation ever crafted. And that goes along with the no tax on tips, the family deductions, and the no tax on overtime. We're going to continue. You could put that back up on. Thank you. The one myth, the one big beautiful bill takes from the poor to give to the rich. Very laughable, but if you're uneducated, don't know, you may listen to these Democrat nasty politicians. Fact, low-income workers stand to receive the largest percentage reduction in their tax liability. The one big beautiful bill delivers the largest tax cut in history for working middle-class Americans. Another myth, the one big beautiful bill makes life more unaffordable. Fact, the bill delivers bigger paychecks, expanding take-home pay by over $10,000 per year for a typical family. And it goes on and on. Now, it doesn't address everything. What's going on with Medicaid? So Medicaid is a government-funded healthcare. In my day, growing up, it was people who were really hard up on their luck. And in New Hampshire, it was very, very strict how you would get on Medicaid. Since then, it's been a little bit easier per se. But as you know, Medicaid was always for single moms with children, which what does that do to the family unit? Does it encourage struggling families to remain apart? You know, there's a lot of controversy about the rules for Medicaid, but we do know there's a lot of abuse. Every healthcare leader right now can look me in the eye and say, we are aware of the huge fraud that happens with Medicare and Medicaid. So with the bill, we were talking about Medicaid. And it is theorized that there's a lot of people on Medicaid who, number one, don't fit the eligibility requirements, and two, may be an illegal alien. So the cuts to Medicaid are never supposed to hurt those of us who are in a little bit of trouble financially. And hopefully with a little leg up, not a handout. I like the verbiage, a little leg up, time sensitive. We haven't quite gotten there because the Democrats fight any kind of reform. Now, Bill Clinton brought this up, President Bill Clinton, a Democrat, that Medicaid cannot continue like this. This is really, and he said the same thing about abortion. It should be very rare. You know, he was a reasonable Democrat. So right now, of course, the talking point of the liberals are, oh my God, you're taking away health care from so many people. Hopefully, if we do things right, nobody who deserves it and wants to use it for just a short-term basis, you won't be affected. Now, it gets a little complicated because of what we call Obamacare. So we don't really look at that as being on the dole anymore of strict welfare. It is a government-funded health program, but you're supposed to pay something towards it depending on your income. But this was obviously aimed at getting rid of people on the Medicaid rolls that don't belong to be there. So it's all against waste and fraud. Why can't you see that, Democrats? The more money that go towards the people that need it, the better it is, right? If we keep wasting government money, which is our tax dollars, on waste, fraud, abuse, the system will implode. Is that what you want? One of the things that did concern me, I shouldn't say concern, I guess the messaging, right? We knew about the first bill, all the great things it was going to do, and we were all excited. And then it got changed in the Senate, and then it went back to the House and got changed again. What happened to remember, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security benefits. You were already taxed on it once when you earned it. I couldn't find a lot of information on it. And as a matter of fact, my husband got a letter from the Social Security Administration, an email saying, we are so proud and we congratulate everybody who worked on the big, beautiful bill to give our seniors a tax break. So I'm really, really excited for seniors. Yay. My neighbor says, no, it didn't go through. It was changed. So I'm like, what is it really? So from what I know right now, that it did not pass to be a all-out tax cut on Social Security benefits. There were many proposals, lots of discussions, lots of back and forth, but it was ultimately reduced to a reduction in the tax burden that benefits many seniors. Ultimately, it did not eliminate taxes entirely. Instead, it included a provision for an enhanced deduction for those 65 and older. I guess it's something, right? It's something to have something more you can deduct. So at least it's something. I'm a little disappointed, I have to say. There's a lot of things in life we're double taxed on when you think about it. And maybe that could be something the Freedom Caucus, the Republicans, I wish the Democrats come together, start looking at bills that don't make sense, overburdening regulations, areas where American citizens are double taxed, and start writing legislation to get rid of it. How can you go wrong? But then again, I didn't think you could go wrong with everybody wanting to secure our borders. You would think that doesn't matter how you vote, whether you vote Democrat, Republican, Independent, Communist, Socialist. Don't you want secure borders? Don't you want that for your family? Certainly, the immigration enforcement agencies, border security, did get some much needed funding, not just for extra bodies, which there is a need for more agents at the border, but modern finishing that wall. And we do know that the Golden Dome partially funded. I say partially because there's a big amount of money in the bill for it. I don't know how much one of these things are going to cost. And we're talking about multiple in different areas of the country. So who knows if it's enough or not. And also some good funding for our U.S. Coast Guard. Again, another area that has kind of gone by the wayside. And they're doing yeoman's work no pun intended, on our coast. Every day we learn of another huge fentanyl seizure, Iranian, who knows what they are, potential terrorists trying to sneak into our country. They're catching these people off of our coast. So I'm glad for them as well. But I would encourage the White House to put out a comprehensive list. I think that should happen no matter what administration. I always said that the American people should see these bills. Do you remember when Obamacare was coming out and it was like 1,500 pages and Nancy Pelosi said, well, you'll read it. You'll get to see it when it's passed. That went for even some of those legislators, sorry. Some of them didn't read it in its entirety, nor did they see it in time, and they were forced upon to do a vote. We can't have that anymore. Let's put it in front of the people. Obviously, we have elections for a reason. They're representatives of us, but we need to know what they're voting for in its entirety, because I can tell you, the American people are so savvy, and there's people out there who would pick up the nuances. How is this being funded? Is it going to hurt another area? Is it going to add more to our debt? They will pick up on a lot of this, and they can sound the alarm and call their legislator. But I really believe if we want to be an enlightened society, start putting longer timelines on the vote, put out what you want to propose to the American public for a time period, and then move forward. You know, we have that in Medicaid and in Medicare. They put out proposed changes to the public. It's just the public doesn't know that they're able to look at this and make comments. Whether their comments go anywhere is another story. But it's something we should look at for all presidents. We got to stop this. During a Democrat administration, we do this. During a Republican administration, we do that. It's just like our judicial system, right? They're such activists now that they no longer follow the law. It drives me crazy. Same with healthcare. During COVID-19, they went against science, against it. We are science, right? Everything we do is supposed to be evidence-based, and we didn't do that, nor did we tell patients about the risks and side effects. But we'll see what else comes out with this big, beautiful bill. But overall, this is great legislation. Great job to our congressional people, our senators, our President of the United States, who wanted this tax cut for the American people. He really, really did. He talked about it, and he also saw the need for funding of our critical border security and our military. So hats off to all of you for doing that. So we talked a lot early on about what's going on in Texas, and everybody here at the Dr. Maria Show is praying for those families, hoping that some good will come out of it. I was listening to Ted Cruz talk, and he was saying out of a terrible, terrible time, you see the best in people volunteering, people working night and day, trying to rescue people. There's still people that may need to be rescued. We don't know. And then there is the recovery operation to bring all the loved ones that have passed home to their families. So, my goodness, it's a tough time. On Wednesday's show, we're actually going to see the worst of mankind, literally, a pediatrician who thankfully was fired, and we're going to talk more about this on Wednesday, came out and said, well, I hope every non-MAGA child is alive and well. What the heck happened to you? You know, a physician has to go through a lot of schooling, right? We often think that they're pillars of society. They've degenerated into maggots to make comments like that. No child deserves to have suffered the way these kids did before they perished. No family, right? No mother or father should bury their children. So I hope you join me on Wednesday, and we're going to look at all the hateful rhetoric and let's problem solve together. If it's an elected official, what can we do about it? Is there an ethics committee anymore? Is it criminal? Maybe not because of free speech, but shouldn't we hold our politicians to a higher level? Well, have a great few days, and I will see you back on Wednesday.